Okay, hey everybody, welcome back. And I've just opened my Shot 2 version 2 project to get started on it. What we're going to do is we're going to put the graffiti on, which should go pretty quickly and pretty painlessly. We'll learn a couple more techniques about shuffling alphas around and all that kind of stuff, and resizing things and all that. So you can see I brought this in, and the first thing you'll notice is that these green lines are visible again. I'm going to Shift E, and our paint for some reason is not visible here. I'm going to go back to frame 1 because for some reason this only works on frame 1, and select your Roto Paint node where we did that initial paint over that window, and just disable it and then re-enable it, and it should come back on. Very strange little bug or something. I don't know what that is, why that doesn't load when you open it, but there you go. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to bring in these images, the graffiti elements, and we're going to put them over in basically the same way we've done this, the mural. Which actually, real quick, let me teach you how to make a, let's do it. Let's select all these nodes. These are all the nodes that make up this mural. Let's go ahead and with that, make sure you got all of them selected, and tab and start typing backdrop. And you'll see it right there under other. Select that, and you'll see you get this great little box, perfect for organizing. And you can actually type mural up here, and you'll see that that should put the little text there. That's a little small, so let's turn it up to say 20. There you go. And then you can even change the color if you would like to change the color. Okay, so now we know that this green box, at a glance, that's where all our mural work is. So yeah, we're going to put this graffiti over in almost the same way. A few other little techniques we're going to learn. So let's go ahead and get started on that. I'm going to move my viewer down. The reason I keep my viewer off to the side, and this may be, maybe this is just me. You can put your viewer wherever you like. I like to keep my things very organized and all flowing down. The nodes are kind of built to flow downwards, so I kind of go along with that. If I put this viewer right in line, and I look at this node, I hit 1, I kind of can't tell which node I'm looking at, right? And if I select this one, looks basically the same. The line thickness changes a tiny bit, but it's not that noticeable. And if I'm selecting any of these nodes and looking at them, I can't tell which one I'm looking at a glance by the node graph. If I move it off to the side, you can exactly see whichever one is kind of shooting off to the side, that's your viewer. So that's what I like to do. That's why I'm always keeping my viewer off to the side. A little less space there, and move this down a bit more. Let's bring in our graffiti elements. I've got 3 of them here, and bring them in one at a time, or else I believe that Natron will interpret it as a frame sequence if you bring in 3 of the same thing that are just have a different number at the end. I think it'll think it's a frame sequence. So I'm going to bring in this one, and I'm going to bring in this one. And here we go. We can get started dropping these on. If we take a look at these, you can see they're huge, right? This one is 4110 by 2537. This one, another random number, 3984, 1759. Our project we're working in is HD, 1920 by 1080. So obviously, if we merge these over, I'm going to press M to drop in the merge node and plug in the first one. Obviously, we've got a size issue here, but we're going to handle all that, so don't worry about it just yet. I'm going to unplug that again for now. Oop, I'm going to unplug it here, maybe. There we go. And so what we're going to do, if we take a look at one of these images, it's black and white, right? It's which is essentially an alpha channel. White is where we would want something to show up. Black is where something's transparent. We want these text, these letters to show up. So we're going to have to invert this to begin creating an alpha channel that we're then going to combine with just a solid color to create our colored spray paint. So I'm going to go ahead and hit, without node selected, I'm going to hit tab and start typing invert. And hit enter, and it does exactly what we wanted. You can see we've got all our grays intact in there. Looks great. Let's bring in a color node now, or a constant is what it's called, just a solid color. I'm going to hit tab and start typing constant. And all that means is this is now, this node just represents a constant color. If we take a look at it, right now the color is black, and if we look at the alpha channel, it is also black. Excuse me. So you can see that right up here, right? RGB, alpha, all 0, basically means nothing. So let's go ahead and change it to a color. I'm just going to change it to like a red color, something dark, kind of grungy. That's fine. For now, we can always change this later. And I'm not going to worry about the alpha channel, because what we're going to be end up doing is we're going to use this as the alpha channel. So let's do that with a shuffle node. The shuffle node is very useful for moving channels around and swapping things out. So select that constant, hit tab and start typing shuffle. Select that, enter, and you'll see it drops it right in on the A line. So go ahead and plug that B line into the text there. And if we take a look at this now, and we look at the alpha, we've still got nothing. Why is that? Well, right now this shuffle node is still passing through everything from the A line. So whatever alpha is here is just getting passed through here, and we know it's nothing, so nothing's coming through. We want the alpha to be something from this B line, right? So we're going to pick something from the B's here. Do we want red, green, blue, or the alpha? Well, let's take a look. If we look at this invert, this is the RGB channel, and it's because it's black and white, that tends to mean that the red, green, and blue channels are all the same. So I'm flipping through you can see here, I'm flipping through red, green, and blue. None of them are changing, so we could use any, the red, green, and blue. If we look at the alpha, however, there's no alpha. So we can't use the alpha from this. So let's go back here, and let's just set it to BR, B red. And you'll see our bounding box grew, which means something happened, which means it's now passing this information through as a part of the output image. And let's take a look at our alpha. And there we go. We've got the correct alpha. It's still too large, and why are we not seeing it in the color channels? These are things we're going to fix. First, let's fix the size. Something very interesting about the constant node, there's no size here in it. When you create it, by default, it makes it the format, the pixel, the image, whatever your image is, 1920 by 1080, that's what it's going to make it by default. But there's this source input on top. If you plug that into a different sized image, it will become that size. So we want it to be this 3984 by 1759. So if we just plug this source right into our default image, it becomes that size. So that's very handy. And now when we take a look at the alpha channel, it's all there. And if we add a pre-multiply node, because you want to pre-multiply the color channels with the alpha. So everywhere that the alpha is black, that's 0. So when you multiply this red color, these values by 0, you're always going to get 0. So if we hit tab, pre-mult, there we go. We've got our perfect spray paint. And then you can go ahead in here if you want. You can go right here, and if you really want to dial this stuff in, you could throw a grade node on afterwards and kind of mess with things here a little bit to tweak things, or the contrast of stuff. But we're not going to do that for now. You can do that on your own if you'd like to experiment with that. So we're actually going to copy, let me shift this around actually. I like to organize my things a little bit nicer, like this, there we go, and like that, there we go. That's very nice. And we're actually going to copy this whole same thing right here, right over to this guy. So this is what I like to do. I like to grab that, oh come on, if you hold down Control, there's no, I'm trying to put in a dot, but apparently there's no keyboard shortcut for a dot, or at least I don't know it. So let's hold down Control and click on one of those yellow dots, and the dot will appear. And let's drag that source input to that. So now we can actually just select all of these. Oh, come on, get that one too, and hit Alt-C, duplicates them all, move them over here, plug that in, and we should have the exact same thing for that. Let's take a look at it. I'm just organizing. I like things to be nice and neat. If we take a look at this now, select that one, hit 1. And there we go. Everything worked just fine. It's the constant's still plugged into the correct size, so we're getting everything we need. We don't need, we can get rid of one of these. I'm going to get rid of the top and just keep that corrupt on the bottom. You can get rid of whichever one you want. And we're going to do that with a rotoscope. So after this pre-malt, hit M to put a merge node and click over here and hit O for a roto node. And with the roto node selected, I'm just going to go ahead and draw a quick box right around that. And we can plug that in right here and set this to stencil. And it should, with any luck, did I do something wrong here? What did I do wrong? 1, 1. Huh. 1, right, that's the alpha. That's the matte. And 1. What did I do wrong here? Huh. Huh. That's fascinating. Oh, maybe this comes in at the default size as well. No? Yeah. All right. That's interesting. Okay. Something to keep in mind, that a roto node works the same as right. If we unplug that, interesting. That the roto node kind of works the same as the constant. That to get the correct size, the correct scaling on that roto node, you've got to plug it into something that's the same size. So I plugged it into this constant because this constant is inheriting the size from up here. So you just plug it into that constant and it knows what size it's supposed to be, and it does it correctly. So that's good. So our alpha channel is still the same there. So we've got our two spray paints ready to go right over top of our image here. We still got the issue of them being gigantic. So let's go ahead and start working on putting them actually over now that they're ready. I'm going to grab our wall movement node, and I'm actually going to hit Control Copy, Control C, see if this will paste it down here, and Control V down here, and there it is. If you hit Shift E, you can see it's still connected to our original track, so all that came across okay. And to put these two together, we're going to use yet another merge node. You can see that pressing M is going to be a very common technique for everyone. Drag this down, plug this in here, and let's take a look at that. That's a mess. But for now it's what we want. And then we're going to plug our wall movement into that merge node so that they will be, they now move with the wall. You're not going to notice it too much right here, but you'll have to trust me that it is working for now. And I'm going to go back to this one, and I'm going to plug the A into our graffiti, which drops it right over top. So we're off to an okay start. With this, we just need to resize them, right? Now we just need to place them. And I believe we know how to do that, right? Up here in this mural, we used a second corner pin node before our wall movement one to kind of place them. So let's just do that exact same thing. Let's come down here, and before they get merged together, we're going to drop in corner pins here. So I'm going to select this pre-malt, tab, start typing corner pin, and grab that first one. So there we go. You can see it immediately goes to the bounds that we want, and we can start moving it around. You can even, if you only want to see this one first, you can actually turn off, disable this merge by hitting D, and now you're only seeing that B line one. So let's go ahead and start kind of getting it in place here. And I want one kind of down here. I don't want to go over that air conditioner, but I do want to go over something like that. I don't mind going over the plant. I don't mind going over these vines. We'll take care of that in a little bit. So that looks pretty good, right? If we take a look at that, that looks great, actually. So let's go ahead and do the same thing on the other one. I'm going to select this and hit D, turn the other one back on, and select that merge, tab. Corner pin's already there, just hit enter. Gives us another new corner pin, which we can then begin placing this one. I'm going to put this one up higher You ever been driving on the highway and you're going under an underpass, or you pass a building and you see graffiti on a building or a bridge, and you're like, how in the world did they get there to paint that graffiti, right? That's almost the most fascinating thing about graffiti to me, is how people get to some of these places to actually put it up there. So that's what we're going to do here, right? It's nice and high. It's over the plants. Anybody looking at this would be like, what? How did they didn't lean over? How they must have brought a ladder, right? It's ridiculous. I want it kind of, this one's kind of going this way, so I want this one kind of rotated a different way, right? Maybe something like that. A little bit more this way, so we're not in the weeds as much. That looks good. I'm digging that. If I saw that, I would wonder how this guy got up here, or girl, to do that. So there we go. We've got all that over. If we zoom in here and take a look, looks great. It's a little sharp, so let's throw a blur node after that wall motion and just set it to maybe like 2. See what 2 looks like. I think that looks great. Maybe a little bit higher. 2.4. Too much? Nah, it looks great. Okay. Know what? Maybe 2. 2 is fine. Let's leave it at 2. So that looks great. So if we go back to frame 1, it should move. You can see if we jump around frames, it kind of sticks to the wall. So we know everything's working. Our track is working. Everything looks great. You can very easily come up here to your constants. You can even label these. Let's call this one like red paint. Oof, that's not how you spell paint. Paint. And you could even make it red if you want. So you remember this is red. Okay, we know that one's the red paint. And this one, let's actually change this maybe to like a yellow. Something like that maybe. Okay, will it update? Let's go. Sometime today. There we go. That looks horrendous. Let's try something a little brighter, a little less saturated. Ooh, too bright? Maybe. That's not too bad, actually, huh? It's really bright, but I think we can dim that down a bit, right? If we go here, value, and we go to maybe like 185, that looks kind of neat. Something different. And we don't have too much red. And I kind of think that's working. And a couple more things. We got to put our plants back over top, right? Right here, the paint's going over the plant. It's feasible that somebody came and spray painted this the night before, so it would go over the plant, but not this plant, right? This plant's in the foreground, it's moving, all that's a bush, so we're just going to stick that same mat that we made up here. If we take a look at this whole node group, we can select these and hit backdrop again, backdrop, and that we know is our spray paint. Right up here, remember we made this mat to hold out the mural. We can actually just run that exact same mat right down to this merge node just by grabbing that mask, plugging it in right there. This is the magic of nodes. You know, if you're in a program like After Effects or something where it's a layer based, you'd have to duplicate your alpha channel, throw it down there, set the track mat to the node, to the layer above it, and you end up duplicating your mat layers all over the place. But this is very powerful that you can just click a line up there and just continues on down. So I put a little node, a little elbow thing in there, a dot, just to kind of clean it up, keep things straight. And if we take a look now at our plants, we can see that they are over the graffiti. Very nice. However, it's a little sharp. See these sharp edges? Kind of not digging that. That's not horrible up there, but down here, just like a little gray edge. So let's just throw an extra blur on here. If we make a blur node, just by hitting B and Control, drag it over to here, and we can set that to like 2. Something small. Hopefully these clean up a little bit. Did a little bit, right? A little bit. Let's set it to 4, just for the heck of it. See what that does. Let's go 3 now. 3 could be the winning number. There you go. 3 looks pretty good. Yeah, I'm happy with 3. Looks great up there. Looks really nice down here. I think that's great. So there we go. That is pretty much done. Something else you can do if you'd like, if you want to dial in the opacities of your these two. It's interesting that the way we've set this up, this merge node will control the opacity for this one just by using the mix that it's at the bottom. If we turn that mix down to 0, you know, what's coming through here is nothing, so it'll kind of vanish. See, if you set this to 0.5, you only get that over at half opacity. If we go up to, say, 0.7 whatever, it's going to start dialing it down. However, this one is putting both of them over top of our footage, so if we use the mix in this one, it's going to take them both down, which you can see is happening right there. So I'm actually going to turn this one to like 0.9 maybe, just to get a little bit. I like being able to see through it a little bit, maybe a little less, like 0.93. There you go. I like seeing through it. It makes it feel a little bit more like it was sprayed on roughly. And this one's still a little bright, so in this one I'm going to turn it down to like 0.8. See what that looks like. Try 0.7, and 0.7 I kind of dig. I'm okay with that. Alright, so there we go. We've got our graffiti over, and it moves with it. If we take a look at it, should if we ever update, you can notice our updates are getting a little bit slower, and the map is kind of always here because our node tree is getting pretty big. But everything seems to be working. The bush is over the paint and everything, so I think we're doing good. So let's go ahead on to the last video for this shot. We're going to take a look at just some extra stuff. I think this is the basics of it. It's more or less done now, and then you would kind of hand it off to the editorial or whatever, where they would then do color correction stuff and other tweaking. And in the next video, we'll take a look at some of that stuff just for fun. But I think the real, the bulk of this tutorial is now over as far as getting this on the wall. We've done that, and it looks great, and it's working great. So I'm going to save it as version 3, and I will see you in the next tutorial.